This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
It is a Friday here on Covering the Spread, which means it is time to talk some strikeout props. And who better to do so than Rob Friedman, pitching ninja. We're bringing him on today to talk about his favorite strikeout props across Friday at FanDuel Sportsbook. And of course, the daily pitching leaderboard for strikeouts over at FanDuel. It is going to be a delight as always. This is Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a digital media managing editor for FanDuel Research, joined here as mentioned by Rob Friedman. Check him out on Twitter at Pitching Ninja. You can find him on Peacock, MLB on Fox, MLB.com, and of course FanDuel Sportsbook as well. Rob, fantastic Friday slate. A lot of fun pitching options for today. How you doing?
I am doing great. I'm doing better now that I heard your intro, because that really gets me fired up for big pitching day.
I think you can downgrade your cups of coffee per day by a half a cup if you have that intro blaring at some point. I think that does really reduce your required caffeine intake just because it's such a banger.
Absolutely. And especially when it gets to the dentist type thing at the end.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
The outro is the same song, and I will as I'm editing the podcast at the end, I let that puppy roll because I didn't need to hear the transition to make sure end of my voice transitions well with when the music begins, but I let it roll because I need to be in a good mood for the day. And honestly, Rob, I don't need the performance enhancers to have a good day today because, again, good pitching slate. Once again, for tonight, one of your favorites, Jesus Luzardo, is pitching for tonight. We got that going. Justin Verlander back with the Astros. That's pretty exciting. And overall fun pitching slate. So, again, I feel like we've gotten pretty lucky with having you on. I know it's Friday, so that helps because it's 15 games, but I think I've gotten pretty lucky with having you on for a lot of fun slates.
Yeah, 15 games, a lot of work for me, though. I sit there and watch all of them, and it's tough being pitching ninja,
I know. You got to get, again, the ice baths for the fingers to make sure you're all ready to get going. Get the big shoulder wrap, except for each finger. We'll get a medical team out there because that sports science is very important. So we'll work on that. For sure. Before we dive into the pitching props for today, quick reminder to make sure you're subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcast. We broke down EPL Match Week 1 with Austin Cass yesterday, getting his thoughts on the opening week of the English Premier League that is up on the Covering the Spread podcast feed. I also talked NASCAR in Indianapolis yesterday, so get some thoughts on that on the Covering the Spread podcast feed, FanDuel YouTube, and FanDuel TV Plus as well. Let's take a look at this fun slate, Rob, for Friday night and dig into the pitching props that you like most, beginning with those strikeout props. When you look at the pitching props for today, which strikeout numbers stand out most to you?
Well, I have a parlay, and today is, of course, the Pitching Ninja Profit Boost Token Day at FanDuel. We get a 30%
right up here
off.
At the top,
absolutely.
At the
Look at that. Look at that. But my parlay, I was going with Paul Blackburn for 4Ks or more, Jose Barrios for 6Ks or more, and then Kyle Gibson for 6Ks or more. I just, we were talking off camera about Blackburn, and he has been surprisingly racking up Ks this year. I know he's got a tough matchup, obviously with the Nats, but I think it's more about him. I think he's, 4Ks is a kind of low number.
It's a very low number. And I think that the matchup is valid because although the Nationals offense obviously is not great, they just got no hit this week. They are a low strikeout team, 20% strikeout rate for them, but they also, you're not wasting pitches against them because they don't walk either. So if you're looking at them against righties, they average 3.76 pitches per plate appearance. And Blackburn is a guy who goes, even with the A's not competing for anything, he goes very deep in games. And when you combine how deep he goes in games, the strikeout numbers, I have Blackburn projected for 4.9 strikeouts tonight, and he needs 4 to get this number, and his overrated there is going to be pretty high. So the over 3.5 strikeouts is minus 134. When you're watching Blackburn this year, what have you noticed? Do you know what has led to not just the strikeouts, but also I think just being a good overall well-rounded pitcher this year?
I thought his breaking stuff looked better than I remembered. So to me, I always viewed him as a guy that was more pitch to contact, a pitcher, and he's actually getting a good amount of Ks. And I've noticed it, a lot on his breaking ball. I don't know. I've turned into a quiet Paul Blackburn fan.
Yeah, He's been fun to watch. He's been productive. He's still suppressing hard contact. So I think that Blackburn over 3.5 -134, very enticing. The other two you mentioned were Jose Barrios and Kyle Gibson. Let's go to Barrios first, taking on the Cubs. The number for Barrios here for his strikeout prop to get to over 5.5 strikeouts is +105. What are your thoughts on Barrios in this matchup here at the Cubs?
I think he's been pitching better lately. I think he's viewing himself. He's got it together. He's got his confidence back. Fixed some directional issues with his mechanics. So since he's done that, I've seen him knocking on the door of being an ace at times, and this is a time to step up for him. So I like him here, and I expect a big day from him.
It's an important game for them. Obviously, every game matters for the Blue Jays right now. I think that always is important this time of year too, kind of judging how much a team is going to care and how willing they'll be to let a horse run. And Barrios is a guy who can go 105, 106 pitches when he needs to. So I think that is enticing for him too. Now, with Kyle Gibson, I was doing my research for today, and I saw a spike in strikeouts recently, and Rob, I was digging into his pitch mix, digging into velocity, and I couldn't figure out why. So explain to me what the heck happened with Kyle Gibson to lead to this surge.
All I know is his changeup has looked really good to me, like one of the filthier changeups quietly in baseball among starting pitchers. And I've been surprised at it too. Like, I see him as a K guy now. And I think a K guy going against the Mariners kind of like that matchup. So that's why I'm taking him.
It is definitely a good matchup. The Mariners active roster, 25% strikeout rate against righties. That is one of the highest marks on tonight's slate, actually the second highest among all teams for tonight. And Gibson again on a roll right now. So two former Twins in the parlay here for Rob. Gibson over 5.5, Barrios over 5.5, and then Blackburn over 3.5. And I think that one individually by far my favorite, because that number is just very, very low. And again, if you want to parlay them together, you can with the Pitching Ninja Profit Boost, a 30% profit boost on that, available for all 3+ leg parlays over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Now, Rob, because most of the starting pitchers have been announced for today, we do have the daily strikeout leaderboard up over at FanDuel Sportsbook. And you were commenting before we went on air about how there are a lot of guys tied at the top right now. Blake Snell, Jesus Luzardo, Lance Lynn, Luis Castillo, and Justin Verlander all plus 550. I'm a bit surprised by that, honestly. Seeing this many guys grouped together, I'm also a bit surprised that Corbin Burns, if we're going to put that many guys together, that he's not one of those. So what's your read on this leaderboard right now?
Yeah, that jumped out at me because I have Burns as definitely a contender, certainly up with the guys that he's behind right there.
Right.
It wouldn't surprise me. It's not a bad matchup for him at all. I think some of these other matchups may be a little tougher for the pitchers involved, but I don't think, I consider Burns. I would have thought he might be the favorite here.
I thought so too, honestly, just because the White Sox are a team that I talked about this before with the Nationals, but the White Sox have very short plate appearances. They're not drawing stuff out. They're not drawing walks. Their walk rate against righties, 6.7% this year on the active roster. So even though they're not like a massive strikeout team, you're not wasting pitches against them. Like, I love Blake Snell. Blake Snell is pitching like a madman right now, but he's facing Arizona, which is a low strikeout team. And they have drawn out plate appearances despite that. And Snell, as we know, can have those plate appearances by himself too. So like, I have Burns a half strikeout below Snell in my projections, but like, that's not a big enough gap, I don't think, to have the discrepancy between Burns and Snell, much less having Burns this far below Verlander and other guys as well.
Yeah. To me, looking at it, I think it comes down to those two. Snell's been really, really good, but yeah, he does walk folks, and Arizona's got, the capability to take him deep into counts. It could be a short outing for him. Still might, he's going to get his Ks because
Sure.
he's that guy.
Right.
But I kind of like, I kind of like Burns there. And I wouldn't like, as a sleeper, what do we have Gibson at? He's like way down there.
Yeah, he's 44-1. That's not bad.
Yeah, he's had some games where he'll rack up Ks. I don't know what number is going to win today. I think it's probably, my guess it's 9 or 10.
I think so.
Yeah. So can he get 9 or 10? Yeah, I can see 9 out of him. It's not impossible.
I think that with both Burns and Snell being on the road, that's going to lower like the threshold you need to hit in order to win, because that matters a decent amount. There aren't a lot of like other guys who strike out a ton. Like, I think Lance Lynn can do that. He's at home, but like, Do you get the same home bump when it's a brand new team? I guess I don't really know how that works psychologically. But like, I think that because you've got the two biggest horses pitching on the road, I think that will lower the number, which is why Gibson's on the road too, but like that could lower the number to the point where Gibson, at least at 44-1, is at least very much in the discussion.
Yeah, I mean, 44-1, that's what I'm looking at. Like, I wouldn't say he should be up there among the favorites, but if you're going to give me 44-1 on it, I'd throw a flyer on it. Why not?
Absolutely. I did want to ask you one quick thing about Snell and Burns before we close up here, because the thing that has impressed me most about them, we talked about this a bit with Blackburn, but the strikeouts are great. We love strikeouts. You know, you make your living off of strikeouts, but they are getting strikeouts while also suppressing hard contact. And like, how do you do that? Like, I know that's like, if you could answer that question, you'd be a millionaire, and you'd be off hanging out, you know, you'd be the highest paid pitching coach in baseball. But like, how are guys like Snell and Burns able to get those strikeouts without sacrificing letting up a lot of hard contact?
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to stuff, but they do it differently because Burns can be a really good command guy. Like when he's on, command of his cutter is just perfect. He has so many different pitches, whereas Snell is a force of nature. He comes at you. He also can lose the strike zone every once in a while, but his stuff, both of them, the one common denominator is stuff. They both have stuff that just is very hard to make contact on. They go about their game so differently though. Like they're very, very different pitchers.
And that's what kind of makes it fun to watch too. I think that's been a delight for sure. Okay, so we got Burns taking on the White Sox, Snell taking on the Diamondbacks. We got Kyle Gibson, one of the late night hammers as well. So it should be a fun night overall. That is Rob Friedman. Make sure you check him out on Twitter at Pitching Ninja. Don't forget that 30% profit boost over at FanDuel Sportsbook as well for a 3+ leg parlay. Rob, good luck to you with the strikeout props for tonight. Enjoy the baseball. We'll talk to you once again next week.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Alrighty. Again, check out Rob on Twitter at Pitching Ninja and find all of his work on Peacock, MLB on Fox, MLB.com, and of course right here at FanDuel Sportsbook as well. Never turn down a profit boost because those are one of the few things we get as advantages as sports bettors as they try to level the playing field at least a bit. We're going to dig into some money lines I like for tonight over at FanDuel Sportsbook here in just 1 second. But first, the link for this week's FanDuel Research Daily Fantasy Free Roll is now available at FanDuel.com/research. It revolves around Saturday's main slate for the English Premier League as they return to the pitch. Lock is at 10 a.m. Eastern on Saturday. We're running these free rolls every week through the end of NFL season to celebrate their transition to FanDuel Research and thank all the loyal numberFire users. To get the link and enter, go to FanDuel.com/research and look for the story on the front page. Eligibility restrictions apply. Let's take a look at some money lines I like tonight over at FanDuel Sportsbook. And let's begin with some of the East Coast games. And obviously these make me a little bit uncomfy because we are betting on some teams that are not super fun to bet on right now. One of those is the New York Mets. I show value in the Mets money line, which is currently plus 156 over at FanDuel Sportsbook as they take on the Atlanta Braves. Seems bad to bet against the Mets against the Braves with the state of each team's roster, but there's a reason I'm here. And I think my model is pretty low on Tyler McGill. McGill is starting tonight for the Mets. And when I know my model is low on a starting pitcher and it still shows value on that team, I'm pretty inclined to take that bet. And that's the case we get here. McGill struggled in AAA and he struggled in his first start back in the majors. And he struggled with the same things that were causing him issues that led to his demotion down to AAA. So that's not great. And that's why I don't want to be here. But on the opposing side is Charlie Morton, who has had his own issues, specifically with command. And despite the pitching exodus the Mets have had, their offense is still pretty good. 113 WRC plus against righties. Pete Alonso is just crushing it right now. And when you add that offense to this situation, I buy into what the model is saying. I've got the Mets win odds pretty decent amount above 40%. Their implied odds at plus 156 or 39.1%. So I actually don't hate it. I mean, I kind of hate it, like the fact that I'm betting on Tyler McGill, betting against the Atlanta Braves, but I understand what we're getting at here. And if I know the model is low on McGill and it still shows value, that to me says I should feel okay betting the Mets. So the Mets at plus 156, the first money line I like for tonight. Second one, a slight favorite, the Pittsburgh Pirates taking on the Cincinnati Reds for tonight. And this one won't make you vomit as much. I think the reason why my model is showing value here is continued skepticism about how sustainable Andrew Abbott's run is. He lets up a lot of fly balls, and he lets up enough hard contact to make it kind of squeamish. You don't think that combo pays off super often, where usually if a guy is a big fly ball pitcher, he suppresses hard contact. Abbott doesn't really do that and doesn't have like a massive strikeout rate. 25% is big, but not a huge number. And the Pirates offense, not great against lefties, but they're not putrid either. Pirates starting Johan Oviedo, and seems like he's been getting a bit better recently, getting a couple more strikeouts since he started to use his four-seam fastball a bit more 13 starts ago. And when you combine it together with expected regression for Abbott, I have the Pirates win odds at 56.8%. Their implied odds at minus 112 are 52.8%. So I think that's good enough to feel good about the Pirates here and bet them. And I feel less squeamish about that one than with the Mets, but that makes sense when the money line is minus 112 versus the other one is plus 156. So you get a couple of West Coast games for the final two money lines. The first one is the Los Angeles Angels. They are at plus 150, actually in Texas, taking on the Astros. And I do show a value in the Angels money line at plus 150 here, taking on Houston. My model puts the Angels win odds closer to 45% than the implied 40%. So I do feel good taking the money line here. And it's largely due to continued skepticism around Justin Verlander. He has not had the same strikeout upside this year as he's had in the years past. And strikeouts play a key role in peripherals because every strikeout is an out, unless it's a pass ball or a wild pitch, versus a ground ball can be a single, a fly ball can be a home run, stuff like that. You want strikeouts to improve your peripherals, and Verlander is not getting those right now. Maybe the Astros can tap back into that, but you're really relying on an assumption in order to justify this price. He's facing Reed Detmers, the starter for the Angels, and he's had some rough starts recently, but underlying numbers still good. He's faced a lot of tough opponents, including the Astros. So I think the market's a bit too high in Houston here. So I'm fine riding with the underdog with the Angels at plus 150. Final money line for me for tonight is going to be the San Francisco Giants. The Giants are going to roll out an opener for tonight. The opener for them is going to be Scott Alexander. Alexander opening in front of likely Ross Stripling. So Stripling is basically the guy I'm projecting to be the starter here for the Giants. And Stripling is not a full starter, working behind an opener for the most part, but he's still pitching really well. If you look at the 8 outings for Stripling with fewer curveballs, he has a 3.53 skill interactive ERA thanks to a very, very low walk rate, and he's got really good batted ball data. He's facing John Gray, and Gray has started to pick things back up a bit recently, but he's still not pitching the way he was back in the spring. I loved Gray back in the spring, was taking strikeout overs on him pretty often, but velocity's been down. It's been a very weird stretch for John Gray, and I don't think he's fully out of the woods with that one just yet. My model puts the Giants win odds at 56.8%. Their implied odds are 51.9%. So I think they're a mighty fine bet at minus 108 for tonight. So to reiterate here, the 4 money lines I like for tonight are the Giants minus 108, the Pirates minus 112, the Mets plus 156, and the Angels at plus 150, all available over at FanDuel Sportsbook. That is all that we have here for today on Covering the Spread. Want to give a big thank you once again to Rob Friedman for swinging by, breaking down his favorite strikeout props for tonight. Check him out on Twitter at Pitching Ninja. Again, if you did not catch our EPL preview for Match Week 1 via Austin Cast, that is up in the Covering the Spread podcast feed right now, along with my thoughts on NASCAR Cup Series and Xfinity Series in Indianapolis. Find those over on the FanDuel Research, the Covering the Spread podcast feed, FanDuel YouTube page, and FanDuel TV Plus. Monday, Dr. Ed Feng is back with us, talk some Women's World Cup, talk the semifinals and the futures market. We'll get that right here in the same feed as well. If you got any questions for me, I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JimSannes. You can also follow FanDuel Research at FanDuel Research. Want to thank you all for tuning in. This has been Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.